but he was drained, both physically and mentally.
Bruce was so despondent, so disappointed in his performance. And actually, this was a real turning point in his life and in his martial art development, because he realized that maybe he didn't have the tools to take somebody down instantly.
To increase his stamina, Bruce trained like a man possessed. He was driven by the specter of the challenge.
And so from that point on, he applied himself completely, 200%, to the mission of refining his martial arts skills, and thus began the development of his way of martial arts, which he called Jeet Kune Do.
Jeet Kune Do translates as the way of the intercepting fist. It became Bruce Lee's signature form of martial arts. To develop it, Bruce adapted what worked from other fighting disciplines. What worked for Bruce was anything that would win in combat. Bruce also studied intensely. He collected more than 2,500 books covering all aspects of fighting. He did not just read books, he devoured them.
This is a book that Bruce Lee learned a lot from, but you can see as you turn through the pages of this book, Bruce's underlinings.
For example, Bruce studied the thrusting movements of fencing as a way to quickly engage an opponent. The results of all his studying and training would soon pay off. Bruce demonstrated his martial arts skills at karate tournaments. He wowed audiences by doing push-ups with just 2 fingers. To demonstrate how much power he could generate with just a short thrust of his fist, Bruce showed off what he called his 1-inch punch. A young martial arts fan saw Bruce Lee at one demonstration. He would become a student and later a teacher of Jeet Kune Do.
His exhibition in his Chinese Kung Fu was awesome. It was for real, it was simple, and it was direct and explosive speed. I've never seen explosive speed like Bruce Lee did.
A television producer searching for an actor to play the part of Charlie Chan's #1 son saw a film of Bruce Lee's exhibition. He called to set up a screen test. Hollywood was about to change the course of martial arts history.
I actually took the call, and Bruce wasn't home, and when Bruce got home, I said, "This guy from 20th Century Fox just called you. You know, he wants to talk to you about doing something on TV."
Test X1. Take one, Steve. Now, Bruce, just look right into the camera lens right here and tell us your name, your age, and where you were born.
My last name is Lee, Bruce Lee. I was born in San Francisco in 1940. I'm 24 right now.
And you worked...
When I see Bruce in that original screen test, what goes through my mind is remembering how he was apprehensive.
Now look over to me, Bruce, as we talk. I understand you just had a baby boy?
Yeah.
And you've lost a little sleep over it, have you?
3 nights.
He had not been before a camera for many, many years, had never planned to go before a camera again. That was not part of his planned future at that point. And here he was now in Hollywood doing a screen test.
There is the finger jab, there is the punch, there is the back fist, and then low. Of course, then they use leg, straight at the groin, or come up. Or, if I can back up a little bit, they start back from here, and then come back.
All right.
It's kind of worried.
He has nothing to worry about.
#1 son never happened, but that wasn't the end of Bruce Lee's Hollywood career. When the cast was chosen for a new TV show called The Green Hornet, Bruce Lee was introduced as the quick-footed sidekick, Kato.
Well, I'll say it the Chinese way. 多謝晒. Thank you very much.
Bruce Lee started a boom in martial arts. It marked the end of his plan to open a chain of kung fu schools and set him on the path to martial arts superstardom. The Green Hornet and his sidekick Kato blasted onto television in 1966. Every move the swift-footed Kato made was new to American audiences.
Bruce made the human body a weapon in a way that people hadn't seen before. There's a difference between being tough and being cool. And Bruce was cool all day long on that show. I mean, just the look in his eye, the way he'd walk or swagger or saunter, he was cool, you know, and that, man, does that strike a chord in America.
The Green Hornet, crime-fighting newspaperman Britt Reed, was played by Van Williams. Van remembers how Bruce had to slow down his techniques so the camera could catch the action.
To me, it just went by as a blur. I mean, he was so fast. And in dailies, they went in to look at some of the stuff before he slowed him down some. And sure enough, it was just and a bunch of yelling and a black blur and people flying, and he was something else.
To promote the Green Hornet, the stars appeared on the hit series Batman. But Bruce's temper flared when the writers planned to have him fight with Burt Ward's character Robin and lose.
I'll never forget the day that the scripts came down on the set. All of a sudden I heard this, bang, slam, bang, wham. I said, Jesus Christ, because Bruce had a short temper, so did I. And occasionally we'd get ticked off about something and blow up, and then it'd all be over, and you know. But it just kept going, and it went further and further away, and all of a sudden I heard the outside door slam, and then I heard a car, and screeching brakes, and
It's a good thing those guys aren't in town every week.
Burt Ward was trembling in his tights because Bruce had put out the word he was going to take down Robin for real.
I tell you what, it's amazing that he didn't wet his pants. He might have his costume. But it was a very touchy situation there for a while.
In the end, Bruce made a joke out of the non-brawl. The scene was shot without incident, and Robin and Kato fought to a draw.
What do we have here? A Mexican standoff?
But Kato and the Green Hornet could not win the ratings fight. The show lasted just one season, and now Bruce had a growing family to support. Brandon was born in 1965 and was the light of his life. Shannon's arrival 4 years later filled Linda and Bruce's Los Angeles home with love.
He did the best at everything that he could, which includes being a father, being a husband, as well as being a martial artist and an actor and a philosopher and being a good friend to many people.
To make ends meet, Bruce returned to teaching Jeet Kune Do. Only now, his students were Hollywood stars like James Coburn.
Beautiful. That's it.
Bruce videotaped lessons to teach Coburn the ways of Jeet Kune Do. At the same time, Bruce was learning how to choreograph fights for the camera. Another regular at Bruce's backyard gym was basketball great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He gave Bruce a unique challenge.
I certainly tested him. My reach was a big problem for him. He liked problems like that because most people didn't test him. He was a lot more of a challenge for me than I was for him.
Bruce became enamored with Hollywood's rich and famous, and there was no star bigger than his student Steve McQueen. Bruce vowed to become just as big a star. Here, in his only existing television interview, Bruce talks about the training sessions with his big screen idol.
Now, as a fighter, Steve McQueen
Now, he is good in that department because that son of a gun got the toughness in him.
Yeah,
I mean,
see it on the screen.
I mean, he would say, all right, baby, here I am, man. You know, and he'll do it.
With all his expertise, the one thing Bruce Lee never did was compete. But he did teach the greatest competitors. Joe Louis was the top karate champ when he trained with Bruce Lee.
I was a student of his. There are a number of people, very famous fighters, who won't admit that Bruce actually trained them.
After he trained with the Little Dragon, Joe went on to win an unheard of 11 consecutive grand championships. In the late 60s, Hollywood flirted with Bruce, but there was no marriage. He worked with Dean Martin as a fight choreographer in The Wrecking Crew and appeared in the movie Marlowe with James Garner. Bruce developed a script for a film to be called The Silent Flute and scouted locations in India with James Coburn. And he had a lead role in the pilot episode of the TV series Longstreet opposite James Franciscus. Bruce essentially played himself, teaching the essence of Jeet Kune Do.
This is what it is, okay? I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now, you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
But despite his modest success, Hollywood still would not invest in a Chinese star. The lead role in the TV show Kung Fu, a series Bruce helped develop, went to a Caucasian, David Carradine.
They were afraid that a Chinese star would not be bankable in Hollywood. He decided if he could not get into Hollywood through the front door, he was going to go around the back and come in the side door. And that is exactly what he did.
The door wasn't in Hollywood, it was in Asia. While The Green Hornet was just a memory in the States, it was a huge hit in Hong Kong. Only there it was called The Kato Show. When Bruce took Brandon to visit his family in Hong Kong, he was surprised to be recognized everywhere he went. Bruce Lee's star status was rising.
I've never seen anybody enjoy the celebrity that he was having in Hong Kong, or any place. I mean, anybody else enjoyed as much as he enjoyed it. Sometimes people say, you know, was he spiritual? I say, yeah, perhaps, but I can see him much better in a Bentley than in a monastery, you know.
The Asian movie industry quickly saw his potential. So Bruce turned his back on Hollywood and signed a 2-picture deal for $15,000 with a Hong Kong movie company. The first film was Fists of Fury. The movie was shot on a budget of just $100,000. The first director was fired midway through production, and much of the script was made up along the way. Working against the odds, Bruce Lee brought an element of realism to the fight scenes. At the Hong Kong premiere, Bruce and Linda sat in the back of the theater, nervously awaiting the reaction of normally vocal movie fans.
So the movie was over. It was stone quiet. Nothing for about 10, 15 seconds, seemed like forever. And then cheers erupted in the audience. People stood up. They turned to find where Bruce was in the audience, applauding him, cheering. It was the most thrilling moment of his career.
The world was about to get a taste of Bruce Lee's greatness. The Little Dragon would conquer Hong Kong and then take on Hollywood.
On glistening Caribbean waters,
Bruce Lee struck a chord that rang true with millions of Chinese movie fans. And Fists of Fury smashed every box office record in Hong Kong. Bruce had become a martial arts superstar.
Bruce in Hong Kong, it's tough to envision now, but then he was the equivalent of a Michael Jackson times 10. Bruce was so massive, you know, that he could not leave his house.
The word superstar really turned me off, and I'll tell you why. Because the word star, man, it's an illusion. It's something what the public calls you. You should look upon oneself as an actor, man. I mean, you would be very pleased if somebody say, hey, man, you are a super actor. It is much better than, you know, superstar.
Now that they had a first-class star to bank on, the Hong Kong Film Company doubled the meager budget for Bruce's second movie, The Chinese Connection. What's not apparent on screen is that Bruce shot all the fight scenes in excruciating pain. He was tormented by a back injury he suffered lifting weights.
What's ironic about that is that despite the fact he had this debilitating nerve problem with his lower back, he blossomed as a martial artist. He became a better martial artist after the back injury than he ever was before it.
Doctors prescribed bed rest, so while Bruce couldn't train, he turned to writing. His philosophy of martial arts, the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, has been published in 9 languages. But Bruce willed himself to start training again. Ignoring doctors' orders, he went back to work.
Even though he could do those fabulous fight scenes that you see in the movies, afterwards it was always ice and heat and stretching and rest, and it was a trial.
Bruce capitalized on his box office success and took near total control of his third film, Return of the Dragon. Not only did he star, write, and direct, he choreographed all the fight scenes. Bruce Lee broke new ground in martial arts filmmaking. For the location, he chose Italy. The film was the first Chinese movie ever shot in Europe. For the fight scenes, instead of actors or stuntmen, he cast real martial arts champions. Bob Wall played thugs in 3 Bruce Lee films. Bruce liked the way he sold a punch. He was adept at taking whatever Bruce dished out, especially kicks to the groin.
He was very clever about knowing what the Chinese audience looked for, what they wanted. The Chinese like to see him get kicked in the groin. They like that extra pain because they felt psychologically they'd been kicked in the groin for a lot of years.
Bruce wanted the climactic scene in Return of the Dragon to be the ultimate fight. His first choice for a worthy opponent was Joe Louis. Joe missed an opportunity of a lifetime. Bruce turned to karate champ Chuck Norris for the Coliseum battle. The fight scene is lauded by fans as one of the best ever. It helped launch Norris's career in the movies. Again, Return of the Dragon surpassed the record set by his previous 2 films. Riding a wave of success, Bruce planned a new film to be his crowning achievement. Game of Death was to feature a remarkable mismatch. The 5'7" martial arts star battled his 7-foot-tall student, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Bruce wanted to make it a depiction of the problems he had boxing me. Basically all of our little episodes in the backyard and the problems I presented to him with my reach and my relative quickness for someone of my size.
Game of Death was barely underway when Hollywood finally noticed Bruce Lee. He got an offer so attractive that he stopped shooting Game of Death and started on the movie that crowned him a martial arts superstar.
Warner Brothers presents Enter the Dragon, the first martial arts film produced by a major Hollywood studio.
He understood that this picture was going to be his showcase to Hollywood and to the West, and so he wanted it to be as good as it could be.
Martial arts movies had never seen this level of production. The budget was 6 times that of Fists of Fury. But when the movie started shooting in Hong Kong, the Hollywood producers were confronted with a serious dilemma. Bruce was so nervous, he couldn't face the camera. The crew shot every scene they could without Bruce.
Bruce was terribly nervous when we started filming. Very nervous. We were shooting for 2 weeks almost, and Bruce hadn't showed up yet. I was telling Warner Brothers the rush is a sensation, and Bruce hadn't showed up yet.
I could sense he was very nervous. His voice was like a cheese cutter. I mean, it was like a wire, you know. And I could almost swear that he was ready to levitate off the ground. He was like so wired.
But in fairness to Bruce, whatever nervousness there was the first 2 or 3 days of filming was completely gone by the end of the first week. And it was back to business as usual.
Bruce turned his nervousness into productive energy. The shoot was strenuous and not without problems. Both cast and crew had to struggle with language barriers. And much like a gunslinger in the Old West, Bruce faced real showdowns every day.
Everybody was always trying to challenge Bruce. It was part of the macho kind of thing that went on.
Never one to back down, Bruce accepted one challenge from an actor on the set.
It was a stupid kid who was saying something to him in Cantonese. And I think he said, well, why? The kid was sitting on, like Simple Simon. I swear, he was sitting on a wall, you know. And he said, well, why don't you come down, you know? And the kid did.
All of a sudden, I could just see it in his eyes. I saw his eyes change. And he immediately went into too bad guy, and he kicked the out of this guy. And when that was done and he backed off, he smiled, helped the guy up, and said, back up on the wall.
The film's climax was shot in a room filled with thousands of mirrors. The signature fight scene almost didn't happen because Bruce did not think it would work.
Bruce did not want to do it. Bruce did not want to do it. And fought all of us on it. But once he got into it, like everything, Bruce, once he got it, he made it better. You know, that was the other part that makes him great. He took it, developed it, and made it better. And that's what was wonderful.
Despite the triumph of filming his first Hollywood movie, there was no time for rest. In May of 1973, an exhausted Bruce Lee went straight to work dubbing the film's dialogue. It was hot in the studio, and he excused himself. Minutes later, a crew member found him passed out in a lavatory. Bruce came to, but then lost consciousness again and went into convulsions.
Of course, we had no idea what in the world was the matter. So I rushed to the hospital, and Bruce was unconscious, and they didn't know what was wrong.
And Bruce was on the brink of death, but pulled back. He could well have passed away on May 10th. But he came back and was alive, but it scared him, as it would anybody who didn't know what triggered it.
Bruce visited the best doctors in Los Angeles for a battery of tests.
I didn't know he was in town. I said, Joe, what are you doing here? And so on. He says, well, I got to go see the doctor and something like that. And then he said something, you know, very grave, like maybe there won't be a Bruce Lee. And I thought, what are you talking about? I mean, those are grave words. Maybe there won't be a Bruce Lee. It's a kind of crazy premonition in a way.
The test results were surprising. They showed absolutely nothing wrong.
We don't really know what caused that. He was under a lot of stress, but the medical report from the doctors in the United States pronounced him in perfect health.
And he was excited. He was the same old Bruce again. I mean, his color was coming back, and certainly he hadn't gained his weight back, but he said, doctors said, body of an 18-year-old.
Reassured, Bruce headed back to Hong Kong to complete Game of Death and face his final challenge. 2 months after getting a clean bill of health, Bruce Lee returned to work on Game of Death. July 20th, 1973, Bruce faced a day full of meetings.
I was actually with him the day he passed away. He seemed fine. It's fair to say that he was excited but tired. That particular day, the only thing he complained about was having a headache.
That evening, Bruce went to the home of a friend to work on a script. Still complaining of a headache, he took some medication and lay down to rest.
I think late in the evening, maybe about 10 o'clock or something, I got a phone call saying Bruce had been taken to the hospital, and so I rushed over to the hospital, and Bruce was not there, had not come in yet, and so hanging around the hospital, not knowing what's going on, and talking to the staff at the hospital, and I said, well, somebody called and said that Bruce was being brought to this hospital, and they said, oh, probably somebody playing a practical joke. I was kind of hoping, yeah, maybe it's not for sure, but then they did arrive, and Bruce was unconscious and was never conscious again.
Fans were devastated. More than 25,000 people jammed the streets around the Hong Kong funeral parlor. Two ceremonies were held. One was a viewing in Hong Kong. The autopsy revealed that Bruce died from cerebral edema, a swelling of the brain.
It was ruled to be a death that was caused by hypersensitivity to a medication that Bruce had been given for a headache. It's so extremely rare that this kind of thing happens. What it's like is an allergy to, say, penicillin.
Bruce Lee's final resting place was Seattle, the city where he first taught his way of martial arts. The pallbearers were family, friends, and movie stars Steve McQueen and James Coburn.
Thank you. May peace be with you.
The tickets that Warner Brothers had sent to Bruce and Linda to come for the opening, they were going to be on The Tonight Show, were the tickets that I used to bring Linda and the children back to Seattle for the funeral. The film opened 2 weeks later.
Enter the Dragon opened at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood. It did record business.
Yes, it was very sad and very sweet, very rewarding. It's even more rewarding now that 25 years later that Enter the Dragon has become the classic of the genre. And I think that Bruce would be very satisfied with that. He really started something.
Enter the Dragon stands as a benchmark of martial arts filmmaking. 25 years after the premiere, Warner Brothers re-released the movie in a special home video edition. Several minutes cut from the original print were restored, scenes that give insight to Bruce's philosophy of martial arts.
When the opponent expands, I contract. When he contracts, I expand. And when there is an opportunity, I do not hit. It hits all by itself.
Bruce Lee's legacy lived on with his children. Brandon was well on his way to stardom when he was accidentally shot during the filming of The Crow. Fans wondered if the Lee family was cursed.
I don't believe in a curse. If I did, it would be hard for me to leave my house in the morning or pursue any of the things that I wanted to pursue. I'd be afraid to dream in a lot of ways.
Now, Bruce's daughter Shannon has her own movie career, hoping that lightning will strike twice. Her first big film was produced by the same Hong Kong company that made her father's movies.
I think Bruce can be considered the greatest, not because of how high he could kick or hard he could punch or how well he could tell a joke. You know? I think it was more and deeper than that.
He was the first Asian actor to be put center stage in a Western film and allowed to be the hero that triumphs at the end. You're talking about an industry where they had John Wayne playing Genghis Khan. Come a long way.
When athletes succeed, the cameras all flash, and when they stumble, the cameras keep rolling.